Welcome everyone to the June 15th, 2020 meeting of the Lake Forest City Council. Would you please call the roll?
Honorable Mayor Pantaleon is here. We just can't hear him. Alderman Morris?
Here.
Alderman Karras?
Here.
Alderman Rummel?
Here.
Alderman Notes?
Here.
Alderman Preschlack?
Here.
Alderman Gushgarian?
Here.
Alderman Bushman?
Here.
Alderman Weber?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem, you have a quorum.
Thank you. Would you all join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Report of city officers. Do we have anything?
We do, actually. Elizabeth Hullab, Finance Director, has an update on the COVID-19 financial impacts update for the city. I don't see George on yet. Elizabeth?
Thank you very much. Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and City Council members. This is the third monthly update that will continue to provide City Council as the COVID-19 impacts on the city's operations and finances continues to evolve. This looks somewhat similar to the slides presented in May, but I'm going to focus on changes or new information that's occurred since the last update, May 18th. As you know, we have now moved into phase 3, the recovery phase of Restore Illinois. So with that, we've seen some changes in both city operations as well as activity of businesses in the city. As of June 3rd, both City Hall and the Municipal Services Facility is open to the public. We continue to encourage residents to conduct business online or via mail, but we are open to serve you should you have needs that warrant coming in and some assistance in person. With phase 3, gatherings of 10 or fewer people can now occur. And I just note that although city facilities are opening to the public, we are still internally staggering or alternating some of our staffing in the operating departments to allow for some continued work to best meet the guidelines and safety considerations for both city staff and the public.
Are you good, Mr. Mayor?
As long as people can hear me, I don't know that.
You may can hear you.
We can yes, affirmative, hear you.
Okay, good. What a mess. Okay, sorry everybody. Where are we?
I'm just in the middle of the COVID-19 update, Mayor.
Okay, I've got it.
This slide remains unchanged from May. This is just the risk impact assessment that we provided you related to the funds and potential impacts of COVID-19. Moving on to the general fund revenue assumptions, the information, the timely information to provide you is an update on municipal sales tax and income tax revenues. We'll be able to provide those updates each month, but on a little bit of a lag. As we talked about last month, municipal sales tax is received on a 90-day lag. And so we are receiving in June sales taxes related to March sales. So as you can see on this chart, came in better than estimated. We had estimated for March 107,578. The actual sales taxes came in at 127,600, so about 20,000 better for March than we anticipated. And that compares to a March of 2019, that was 143,000. So it gives you a little bit of an indication of the change related to, you know, the closure and the governor's proclamation on about the middle of March and that impact on sales. Again, these March sales are actually FY20 revenues, so we won't get into FY21 reported revenue until we see April receipts or May receipts in August. Next update is related to income tax revenue. So I put in the box, the red box, the applicable month. So in June, we're receiving income tax revenues for April. And you can see that that yellow line came in generally flat compared to both the FY19 April and the FY20 April. So we consider that good news. The gray bar at about $6,000 in revenue was our estimate. We anticipated seeing a significant drop in income tax revenues in April, but I think those receipts were bolstered by folks still submitting their calendar year 2019 income taxes. So that is good news. Next, moving to the Park and Recreation Fund. As you know, program fees are significantly impacted in FY21 based on the programs that we're able to get rolling in the summer. So we're focusing specifically on recreation and program results of operations. This gives you a snapshot of Park and Recreation Fund financials as of May 31st. I would just call your attention to the two items in yellow on the right. This is fund totals for the Park and Recreation Fund for May of 19 compared to May of 20. So you can see, as you would expect, May receipts and expenses coming in less than last year, but on a net basis, we actually performed better than May of 2019. So that kind of compares May revenues and expenses overall for the 2 years and holding steady as of May 31st on a net basis, which is good news as well. Turning to the DEERPATH Golf Course Fund, the way we do accounting for the golf course will result in us reporting this on a 1-month lag. You are going to receive a detailed presentation on the Golf Course Fund this evening from Vince Juarez. So I will certainly defer to him. And then next month, you'll begin to see the financial comparisons for the Golf Course Fund the same way you do as the Parks and Recreation. Capital improvements, we will again begin to report those revenues in July. Not a lot of impact in May because of the lag on sales taxes. Property taxes being a significant revenue source in the Capital Improvement Fund will not be impacted this year by COVID-19. So that is good news, and we'll be back with actual data next month. And just turning to the local business grant program, we've now had 4 applications received and approved for grants for businesses in the city. We've committed grant funding of $22,038, and we have actually paid out $862. So last week was the first payments made out. I would just remind the council that the way the grant program works is that businesses must file and pay sales taxes to the Department of Revenue before they can apply for a payment for the grant program. And because they are able to defer sales taxes right now, this is not a surprise to me. And I think that as time goes by, more businesses are reporting, again, their sales to the Department of Revenue. We'll see those numbers go up. And I'm also going to be reaching out to Joanna Rolick to get another reminder out in the chamber email blast related to the program, and that we're actively taking applications and awarding grants, even if they're not ready yet to request payments. And finally, this is just the list of things that we are tracking for costs related to COVID-19 and recovery of those expenses. The one update I wanted to provide was in red. That's related to the CARES funding, the coronavirus relief funding, the amount that was allocated to Lake County of $122 million. They have a subcommittee of their board who are going through and reviewing and making recommendations on allocations of those funding. The good news is that the committee met on Friday. Are putting forward a recommendation to the Finance and Administration Committee and the Lake County Board to allocate $10 million of that $122 million to local governments in Lake County to assist them in meeting the expenses that are being required for COVID-19 issues to be addressed. So that is good news, and more to come as that goes through its process at Lake County. Other than that, that is it for my report for this month, unless anyone has any questions.
Elizabeth, I have a question. Hello?
I can hear you.
Oh, were you able to confirm that the Kelmscott Park sale closed today?
I assume that it closed. We did receive the real estate transfer tax wire today of $215,000. So
Okay, so what does that make the purchase price?
that was, I think 53 million and change.
Yeah, I think 250 or something like that, or 750. I'm not sure everybody understands the significance of this, but that sale is, Ted, you'll understand this. It's $484,000 a unit, 111 units, and by a wide margin, a record for a suburban sale in terms of price per unit for an apartment project. All through the COVID thing, there were questions about whether it was going to close or not. Ultimately, the tenants are still there and they're paying their rent, so they closed. And that's going to do wonders for our TIF. So Elizabeth, could you maybe give a little explanation of that?
Absolutely. So the TIF increment generated based on valuations of the properties in the TIF district have not come on as quickly as we hoped with the development. This sale at $484,000 per unit, as the mayor indicated, is significantly higher than the current assessed valuation of the apartments. So I think we can safely assume that next year the value of those apartments will go up. And while we won't see the revenue in fiscal year 21, should generate significantly more TIF increment revenue in fiscal year 22, which is great news.
Yeah, the assessed value of the property was around 300,000 a unit, if I remember correctly. Is that
Right.
is that right?
That's
So
correct.
we're talking off by a factor of 40% or 50%. I mean, it's just a huge gap. So it'll be a big boost for the TIF. And by the way, a testament to the success of the project. This is a very large institutional investor, one of the big open-end institutional funds, as I understand it. I don't know exactly which one. These are long-term investors. They buy these properties and they hold them for sometimes decades. So similar to the ownership of Market Square, which is the Ohio State Teachers Pension Plan. So we are an institutionally investable community, which is saying something in today's world for a suburban, community.
I have a question, Elizabeth, if I may, Mayor.
Sure, go ahead.
We know that the city made an application for the fast track program, albeit limited funds from the state. I think the grand total for statewide is 25 million. And we had made our application. Is there any indication how long it will take the state of Illinois to act on those grants? And, what are, well, I guess whether or not when we'll find out, given that we're moving forward with the Rosemary project regardless, but it would be nice to have some indication. Has the state indicated that they're going to act on these grants by any particular date, or is it just really open-ended? They're trying to score these things right now.
Sure. I am not aware of any specific deadline, but I know that it is, they are considering applications as they come in. So when $25 million is exhausted, the program will be completed. So there was definitely incentive for people to get applications in early. So I would think it would not be too terribly long before we'd hear back.
Okay.
Other questions for Elizabeth? Okay, thank you. Generally pretty good news. One question I had, there is a new state regulation that I'm supposed to pronounce at the beginning of a virtual meeting. Was that read tonight?
Why don't you go ahead, Mayor?
Okay, this is a statement that we're required to make when we have these meetings. As of sometime last week or this week, the governor signed a revision to the Open Meetings Act. In accordance with state statute, I have made a determination that it was not practical or prudent to schedule an in-person city council meeting tonight because of the COVID-19 pandemic, which is why tonight's meeting is being held remotely. So, and then the other thing I should point out is members of the public can provide public comment by calling into the number 847-810-3643 later in the meeting, about I would guess half an hour or so from now. Well, Elizabeth's comments were my mayor's comments, so I will now turn over the agenda to Jason Wisher for comments by the city manager.
Great. Thank you very much, Mayor and members of the City Council. Good evening. I have two items tonight, and the first, as Finance Director Holub hinted at, we have joining us tonight Vince Suarez, the General Manager of DEERPATH Golf Course, here to provide a more detailed update on the state of the operations at the course, both during the infancy of the pandemic and in light of some of the earlier restrictions imposed by the governor's stay-at-home order, and with the gradual easing of some of those restrictions as we've advanced to further in the governor's recovery plan. So, Vince, if you're on the line, I see you there. Go ahead and take it over.
Thank you. Good evening, members of City Council. Pleasure being here this evening. I am going to give a brief update of where the golf course is at, where we started with the COVID-19, what the impact to the industry was. We're going to talk a little bit about the procedures for Illinois golf, what we did to be able to be allowed to return to play here at DEERPATH. We'll get a little bit into our May financials, and then we'll go through some highlights and where we're at moving forward. Everybody, this is a map of the United States as of April the 6th, which just shows a brief overview of the golf courses that were open and closed at that time. DEERPATH Golf Course officially closed for the COVID-19 back on Friday, March the 13th. And as you can see in this map, most, if not all, of the golf courses in the northern part and at least Illinois were shut down at that time. We were able to, we were closed for all of April, and we were able to open on May 1 in conjunction with the governor's phase 1. We then opened May 29th in conjunction with the governor's phase 2. The estimated loss of revenue at DEERPATH was $230,000 through May of 2020. That takes into account being closed for half of the month of March and being closed for a portion of May with some, or all of April, and being closed for a portion of May with some restrictions on board. When we, the April, this is a rounds played summary for April. No surprise here that rounds in the United States were down 42.2% overall in the United States. And the revenue was obviously down here at DEERPATH in April, and the outlook back in April into May was unfavorable. Nobody knew what the COVID was going to bring to DEERPATH. It was a little uncertainty as to when we were going to be able to play golf. And so we are looking back in April to a very unfavorable May here at the golf course. From a retail level, the COVID-19, this is a chart from the National Golf Foundation, 47% of the people surveyed were concerned or somewhat concerned with golf retail, about entering a golf shop, about entering a golf course. So as we mentioned, when the COVID hit, we were a little bit unsure what it was going to bring for us for the rest of FY20. Back in April of 2019, You'll all remember that it was a very snowy and rainy April. We had snow on the Masters for the Masters tournament for the very first time. They played the tournament in the morning, the final round. May of last year, May of 2019 was at the time the wettest May in Illinois history. June was a very cold month, June of 19. October of last year, it snowed the last week of the month. November of last year, it was 10 degrees back on November the 12th. And then in March of 2020, we closed as of the close of business on the 13th of March. And in April, we were closed all month. But that didn't stop the DEERPATH Golf Course crew from pushing forward, pushing ahead, watching our operational costs, monitoring our people cost, taking advantage of every revenue source we could take advantage of to finish FY20. The financials are still coming through, but it's estimated that we'll finish up 18% year over year with an EBITDA, which is earnings before interest, tax, depreciation, and amortization, with an EBITDA of a positive $86,872, even with the April, May, June, October, November, March, and April that we had. So very pleased with the results of FY20. Moving into phase 2 and phase 3 here, when we moved into phase 2, May the 1st, the governor had sent out the guidelines as to how we were required to open the golf course. And the big highlights are that the golf course was to be walking only unless you were handicapped or physically unable to walk the golf course. One of the big ones was a maximum of 2 players per group and tee time intervals every 15 minutes. At DEERPATH, we are used to tee times every 8 minutes at 4 players per group. With the tee times every 15 minutes and 2 players, we were only allowed to put out 8 golfers per hour, opposed to our normal 32 golfers per hour during phase 2. Additionally, in phase 2, food and beverage was limited to takeout or curbside delivery. All the touch point items had to be removed. The practice ranges were closed, which included the driving range, the short game area, etc. And there were no camps that could take place. As we moved into phase 3 of Restore Illinois, we went to individual rider golf carts on May the 28th. We went to individual rider, or May the 29th, we went to individual rider golf carts. We were allowed to have 4 players per group, and tee time intervals were moved to every 10 minutes. A big part of phase 3 was we were able to open up our patio for outside dining, which, as you'll see later on in the presentation, was a major factor for us in how we performed and have been performing since May the 29th in phase 3. The pro shops were able to open. The practice facility, the driving range, the short game area was able to open. All of our touch points continue to be removed from the golf course. The big item for phase 3 is shotgun starts, which is normally how we run all of our golf outings, are not permitted in phase 3. So that was the big issue for us in phase 3. Some of the things that we did operationally in order to be able to return to play, working with the home office of Kemper Sports, working with the city of Lake Forest, we went ahead and had policies and procedures put into place requiring face masks for all of our employees, requiring gloves for all of our employees. All of our employees monitor their temperature on a daily basis. Our employees are filling out their personal health screening report on a daily basis. We are cleaning the golf carts using a EPA-approved COVID solution after every player steps foot in a golf cart when they return the golf cart upon completion of play. We handle contact tracing. We're saving all of our tee sheets so we know who's been out here. The facility cleaning has been ramped up. The social distancing continues to be in place. Our touch points are still removed from the golf course, the ball washers, the rakes, the divot mix, the water jugs, etc. The benches are still off the golf course. So back on April the 30th, we were all gung-ho and ready to get on the golf course on May the 1st. We were here late on April 30th. We were here on the 29th getting things prepared, and we had a big flood that hit on April the 30th, which we thought for sure might impact our opening on May 1st. We were 100% booked for May the 1st, and we were ready to go. This is what the golf course looked like on the afternoon of April the 30th. But I will tell you, thanks to the drainage project that the City of Lake Forest put into the facility, we were able to open on time for golf on May the 1st, when the golf course was like this on the afternoon of the 30th, and accept play. And everybody knows, I think, that May of 2020 ended up being the new wettest May in Chicago history. And the floods that we had a flood on April the 30th, we had a flood on May the 18th, we had a flood on May the 19th, which impacted the golf course at an estimated $20,000 in revenue. But however, even with all of that, we knew that there was a demand for golf. We knew that people were at home. We knew that people needed an activity to get out and enjoy. And there's no better social distancing sport than the game of golf. This is a utilization chart. We were 49.2% favorable in utilization year over year in May. We were 82.5% utilized in May of 2020 versus 33.5% or 33.3% utilized in May of 2019. Utilization was up. Green fee revenue was up. Our weekend utilization was close to 100% at 94%, our weekend utilization. This golf course has been full from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. every weekend since we opened. We drove our revenue in May. We honored our permanent tee times. There were several facilities in our competitive set that didn't honor permanent tee times, that didn't honor memberships. We know that our permanent tee times and our memberships, they are our community, they are our residents. We honored our permanent tee times, we honored our memberships. We used our dynamic pricing to drive revenue during available tee time slots. We had our individual private lessons that we had on the golf course during the COVID shutdown in May, where we went to twosomes for individual private lessons. We were 100% booked up for our clinics in May, which could not take place on the group level. So we turned to twosomes and did individual private lessons on the golf course. We had our consistent F&B. We did curbside delivery in the month of May. We worked with the City of Lake Forest to have one message all month to deliver to our golfers and to our residents. We turned our online store into a more robust area to buy golf clubs, to buy shoes, to buy golf balls. But none of what we did in the month of May or even in June could have been accomplished without the drainage project that was put in by the City of Lake Forest. You saw the pictures. Without that drainage, without the capital project that was put in, we would have had a tough time driving revenue. The additional part that was important for us was when we went to phase 3 with the governor, being allowed to have the patio seating available, being allowed to have outside dining. Everybody is aware that the restaurants, the interior restaurants, are still shut down. We have 100+ person patio. Now our number of seats is certainly shrinked with the social distancing, but we were able to open our patio on May the 29th, and it's been full ever since. We have done 21,000 in food and beverage revenues since May the 29th. And to put that in perspective, from May 1st to May 28th, we averaged $76.86 in food and beverage during curbside. Since May 29th, we've averaged over $1,000 a day in food and beverage revenue. So the impact that patio has on our golfers, on our bottom line, on our revenue stream, speaks for itself. And we certainly thank the city for everything that they've done to allow us to have the patio out there. So what does this all do for our May financials? Our greens fees in May were 5% favorable to our greens fees in May of 2019. So we did almost $60,000 in green fee revenue in May of 2020 versus $55,000 in May of 2019. There certainly were some areas where revenue was down. Those areas were cart fees, merchandise, memberships, range, instruction, F&B. With the curbside only, you saw what the impact was on the average food and beverage revenue per day, and that's reflected in these numbers. However, once we took our payroll reductions and our operating expense reductions into account, our EBITDA for May of 2020 is estimated to be $40,326 compared to $45,000 in May of 2019. So about 10% down, but almost right on target considering that we had no golf carts for 28 days out of the month. We had no pro shop open, $6,000 in online sales. Our membership was on a little bit of a decline when people didn't know whether they were going to play golf again. Our range was shut down most of the month. That $2,000 you see there was from the last 3 days of May. Our instruction, we turned to individual private lessons, but we have shifted some of the instruction to June. And our food and beverage was primarily the last 3 days. So overall, given the fact that we were somewhat handcuffed as to our abilities, May was a pretty solid month for us. We did expand some of our services in May as well. We opened the beach early. The goal for the concessions at the beach was June the 6th. We opened concessions on May the 30th down at the beach and have been running every day since. During the curbside takeout phase of the Governor's Restore Illinois, we brought the food out to the patio and were able to do a little bit of grilling out on the patio and provide some takeout food directly from the patio, which certainly helped build some sales. So where are we at looking ahead? We are certainly putting a lot of effort on building revenue and bringing golfers back to the facility and keeping them at the facility. Our utilization has continued to be strong. We continue to be booked from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. on the weekends. We continue to be booked solidly during the weekdays as well. We have a wide array of fitting days scheduled to try to drive merchandise sales. We've got Father's Day coming up, which right now is booked till 4 o'clock in the afternoon. We have our women's leagues Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, which are now playing in full capacity. We are still only doing tee times, and there are no shotgun outings, no shotgun starts for the golf outings, which will be a factor as we move forward. So in conclusion, May was an excellent month for us, given all the restrictions that we had, and June has certainly started off very strong. Our blended utilization, weekday and weekend utilization, is near 85%. Our rounds in June are up 500 rounds month to date over last year. Our merchandise sales are on pace with prior year, and that's excellent considering that there have been no golf outings. And our green fee and cart fee revenue is up $12 per player year over year, not including our memberships. So we are certainly happy with the way June has started off. There are some concerns moving forward, and that's with some of the events that have been canceled or rescheduled. We have lost a couple golf outings in June that are not going to be rescheduled, but some of them have rescheduled for August, September of this year. And those events are a major contributor to F&B revenue. And what did the golfers think about their time here at DEERPATH? Most of you are aware we use what's called a Net Promoter Score to track golfer satisfaction. And just to kind of put it in perspective, companies like Disney are in the mid to low 90s. Companies like the cable companies are down in the teens for Net Promoter Score. DEERPATH Golf Course during the month of May had a 92.6% NPS, which is outstanding. We had a service rating of 9.7. We had a recommendation level of 9.7. And it tells us that the golfers were very pleased in what not only the product they had when coming to the golf course, the overall customer service they had here. And we look to extend that into June. So at this time, I'd be happy to answer any questions that anybody has.
I have a question, Vince. It's regarding hearing more information about the food service at the beach. Is there a place that residents can find information about menu offered, pricing, your hours of operation? either on the city's website or other? Because I know I've been down there and I haven't made it over to the concession area.
Yes, it's not on our website. It's not on DeerPath Golf Course's website, but I believe that the beach hours are located on the Park and Rec side. I'll check on that tomorrow, make sure, and if they're not, we'll make sure that they get put up.
I would suggest maybe we add that to one of the city communications via email, perhaps a Facebook post or an Instagram post. It'd be nice to see a little more promotion so people know what kind of full service operation we have down there.
Absolutely.
Hey, Vince, this is Jed Morris. Having worked with Elizabeth on the budget and expecting a much grimmer picture from the golf course, this is pretty amazing. So hats off to you and your team for getting that all done and coming in where you have. It's remarkable. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Great. Well, thank you, Vince, very much. And certainly would echo Alderman Morris's thoughts that hopefully the relatively positive numbers for us in the month of May give us a nice head start in exceeding initial forecasts for the year, since we did budget 0 for the month of May. So a really nice job by Vince and his team. And pleased to say I was able to have my first lunch out on the patio last week, and the food is as good as ever. So certainly encourage everybody to do their part and enjoy it. It was great to be out there, and it felt like a small, even if brief, return to normal. So great job, Vince. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
The second item I had tonight is, well, sort of serves two purposes. It both are to be presented tonight by Todd Nahigian, the Croya manager. This year was and still is an important year for Croya, and an opportunity to celebrate a real milestone with the 40th anniversary of Croya. And I know for Todd and his staff and for all of the participants, was not particularly how they necessarily wanted to celebrate it, but I'm going to give a little plug to Todd and his staff and just acknowledging how much they've continued to stay engaged with all of the students who participate. I had the pleasure of sitting in and observing last week's recognition celebration, which culminated in the sharing of the winning essays of the two Margot Martino essay contests winners. And so I will just say that not only did I think the event was it handled very well given the circumstances, but not just a credit to Todd and his staff, but also to the participants. Every year, and I've only been here for 2 of these now, but I'm always amazed at the maturity exhibited by these kids. And I think it's a real testament to our community every time I listen to the essays that are being shared. And so happy to have that offered and shared with all of you and with the community tonight. But before we get to those, I'm going to turn it over to Todd to talk a little bit about the 40th anniversary of Croya. Todd, are you with us?
I am. Thank you very much, Jason. Mr. Mayor and Aldermen, we thank you for this annual tradition of spotlighting Croya at City Council. I'd like to acknowledge and thank outgoing Alderman Michelle Moreno, who served as the Croya liaison to City Council for the last 6 years. On behalf of the Croya organization, we truly appreciate her support. I also want to acknowledge newly elected Alderman Jennifer Karras, who is the new Croya liaison to City Council. Jennifer served as the chairman of the Croya Adult Board and is a current member of the Croya Foundation. So thank you very much. Now we can start with the 40th anniversary information. So a few words about the Croya's 40th anniversary, which officially took place this month on June 6th, 2020. It was on that date in 1980 in the Lake Forest Council chambers that Croya was born. Croya's 40th anniversary is a huge accomplishment for Lake Forest and Lake Bluff, honoring the commitment to the youth of these communities over 4 decades. There are thousands of people who have created the path of Croya's success over 40 years, and we thank each of you who has played a role in this success. From the youth and parents to community leaders and staff to board and foundation members, you are all part of the fabric of Croya. I am honored to acknowledge and thank Croya's founding fathers, pictured here, Frank Farwell, Margot Martino, and Gene Hotchkiss, for without these three, Croya would not exist today. Both Margot and Gene were present on our recent senior recognition Zoom event to present this year's Croya Foundation Senior Awards in honor of Croya's founding fathers. You will be hearing tonight from the two youth who received the Margot Martino Spirit of Croya Award. The Croya flags flying over town. They're flying over City Hall, Municipal Services, Public Safety, and the Recreation Center. These flags are flying proudly and represent Croya's 40-year history of serving the youth of Lake Forest and Lake Bluff. Croya board member and Lake Forest High School art teacher Carolyn Bielski worked directly with the Croya youth and staff to create the 40th anniversary logo. We are creating special Croya merchandise with this logo for the 40th anniversary celebration, and we'll make sure that the aldermen receive some fun items. Croya youth and staff will truly miss the opportunity to march in the Lake Forest Day Parade and provide live music at the West Park Band Jam. We are hoping that Croya's end of summer celebration will be able to happen and provide a welcoming community event for all. Next, some of the details of the celebration. The celebration will take place on Saturday, August 29th from 5 to 9 p.m. as long as the state of Illinois moves along the stages of opening, which will allow us to have a large gathering. There will be live music from bands who played at Croya events over the 40 years that are still playing music today. There will be food from local restaurants and fun for the whole family. We are also proud to announce that professional artist and Lake Forest High School alumni Thomas Quinn will be painting a new mural on the Illinois Road Viaduct wall this summer to honor Croya's 40th anniversary. As a senior in high school, Tom painted this same wall with an original version of Nighthawks by Edward Hopper, which is still considered to be one of the best murals ever painted on this wall. Croya is in the process of creating a magazine to commemorate the 40th anniversary. Another Lake Forest High School student, George Erkenswick, has created artwork of the Croya Student Union shown here, which will be featured in the magazine. Now I'd like to introduce our first 2020 Margot Martino Spirit of Croya Essay Contest winner, Haley Banta. Haley served as the Croya Youth Chairman during her senior year of high school and as one of the fundraising chairs during her junior year. She was also a leader on multiple Croya retreats. Haley will now read her award-winning essay.
At the beginning of my freshman year, 4 years of high school seemed to be much longer than I would have hoped for. I was shy and uncomfortable with the unfamiliarity of a high school that seemed far too big and unfriendly, even months into the school year. November came around and I was beginning to wonder if I would ever find my place at LFHS when I went on the fall retreat for the first time. Students that I idolized spoke about their lives with honesty and listened to others with compassion. People went out of their way to be kind to one another, and at the end of it all, I was assured that I would always have a home at Croya. This was my introduction to the spirit of Croya, something that has shaped my identity and changed my life for the better. When I returned from the fall retreat, I was the same shy student that I was when I had left, but now with a renewed faith in humanity and a longing to make Croya a place of my own. The halls of LFHS began to feel warm and welcoming. As I grew closer with my peers through greetings in the hallway or conversations at our weekly meetings, it became clear that everyone was just doing their best with whatever they were going through. Moreover, no one had to go through it alone. The people around me were no longer a threat, but a resource for me to lean on. This mentality shift was all thanks to the kindness and compassion that members of Korea had shown me in my first few months there. I developed a newfound desire to reciprocate this kindness and give everyone the benefit of the doubt, thus beginning my dedication to living with unconditional positive regard. This principle became foundational in the way I befriend my classmates, learn about the world around me, and ultimately carry myself through life. High school went on, and my love for Korea never wavered. Sophomore year came with new people to meet, new Wednesday night activities to attempt, and another spring retreat to experience. But through no fault of Korea, I still felt like an outsider. With so many exciting events to participate in, I began to fear that I would never be outgoing or comfortable enough to be a true Korea kid. As I made new friends, attempted new games, although I don't see myself trying bubble ball ever again, and opened up on the spring retreat, I began to let go of my shy exterior and assert myself, at least within the walls of Korea. The acceptance and support that I received in return solidified Korea as my favorite place and taught me that I didn't have to try to be perfect in order to be loved. I found the confidence to be authentically me, connect with others, and ultimately gain my first position on the student exec board. With my newfound sense of self, junior year began and I continued to spend most of my time at Korea. From my first exec meeting, complete with Donati's of course, to countless hours after school in Megan's office, Korea became my second home. However, with the opportunity to lead the spring retreat just around the corner, I had not yet learned all of the lessons Korea had to offer me. I had already learned that everyone had a chapter they don't read out loud, but it wasn't until now that I discovered the power in sharing my unread chapter with those around me. With the hope of living up to the example of my first retreat leaders, I learned the strength and vulnerability and the necessity of asking for help. I challenged myself to step out of my comfort zone, knowing that I could always rely on the genuine advice and unwavering support of the Korea staff and the close friends that I had made there. This year, I was able to take the lessons that I had learned over the past 3 years and craft an identity for myself that I can be proud of. The philosophy of Korea being run for the youth and by the youth allowed me to learn from the examples set by my older peers and look up to them as people who had gone through the same things that I was. Now as a senior on exec, I had the opportunity to have a genuine impact on something I love and take accountability for how Korea was represented. I continued to live with unconditional positive regard, authenticity, and vulnerability, now utilizing these traits in my new role on exec to perpetuate the loving and welcoming environment that I had found at Korea as a freshman. I spent nearly every day at Korea, and it's impossible to express the gratitude I feel for the people I was able to spend my last year with. I had the pleasure of meeting with Mrs. Martino this winter during the Poinsettia Sale fundraiser. She told us stories about what Korea looked like in its early days, stories of meetings long before the student union even existed, events she had held in her own home, and of course Vince Vaughn's legendary time on exec. Hearing stories of all that the Korea kids before me had done for the youth and by the youth, I was reminded that the community I love spans far beyond my 4 years, including 40 years of tradition and memories, cherished by many more people than just those that I see at Wednesday night meetings. It is a family, not connected in time or location, but held together by the spirit of Korea, and being a part of it is the most wonderful gift high school has given me.
Thanks, Haley. That was great. We're very fortunate that you were our chairman this year. You did a wonderful job.
Thank you.
Now I'd like to introduce our second 2020 Margo Martino Spirit of Korea essay winner, Ava Manelis. Ava served this year as the graphic design chair on the Youth Executive Committee and as one of the topic night chairs during her junior year. She also was a leader on multiple Korea retreats. Ava will now read her award-winning essay.
Margo Martino, a Korea alum and quite frankly a Korea legend, is someone whose philosophy I have always looked up to use and better myself as a person within this community. Although never knowing her too personally, the times that I've seen Margo, she is truly a light to everyone. A character trait that I've always and still always strived to be for the people in my life. She's happy, bubbly, eccentric, all aspects I know no one would disagree that they would like to have in their own set of character traits. As a light that she has been at Korea, She's inspired others to do what they truly care for, influenced people in a positive way, and most importantly, formed a community that I and so many others are so fortunate to have in our lives. Because she has done so much for Croya and ultimately made it a place where the youth are able to run everything, I have built so many character traits that I didn't know were possible within me. I have become a leader through her philosophy, a person who can take command of any situation, no matter how difficult or frightening the circumstances may be. I've become a more gracious friend, someone who now realizes that everyone has a story deep within them that you just haven't been able to read yet, and you should treat them as so. And above all, I've become a positive person, someone who always sees the bright side in every situation, because at Croya, I've learned that it's not a bad life we are living, but instead a bad day that we are having. Besides the aspect of Croya turning normal kids like me into vivacious and passionate leaders through the philosophy of Margot, it has meant just everything to me. Croya has brought me the most authentic friendships I could have ever thought imaginable. After reading that sentence, one may picture a room full of people at a Croya meeting and think that I'm insane for saying that they're all my best friends, but that's not what I mean. I'm lucky when I say that every retreat I've been on, I've made at least one actual new best friend, one just as close to the friends I've had since second grade, whose friendships with each other we have also strengthened at Croya. This is insane, and I can quite confidently say that no other community could bless me with the number of amazing friends that I have found myself gaining through Croya. These friends may be the cool and scary upperclassmen who I would have definitely never stepped foot in the path of, or maybe a girl in my grade who I just would have never thought I'd get along with. But I'm so grateful to have had Croya introduce me to these people that have now become my lifelong friends. The community of Croya has also just helped me in my personal life immensely. I've had my fair share of pain throughout my short life thus far, as have most teenagers, but Croya has helped me develop skills to grow through what I'm going through. But beyond just myself, in the past few years of high school, my brother has battled with issues I could have never myself gone through. After a long time of him being rather unaccepted to the community, bringing him to Croya just once allowed for a new path to come into his life, a path of positivity and light that he didn't even know was out there, and ultimately a new life for him to immerse. He went on one retreat through Croya, and then followed me on the spring retreat on Kairos. Sorry, big rivals here. I'm kidding. And I've never seen him happier after experiencing these 2 weekends. He was able to open up his small groups, see that he wasn't alone in his battles, make new best friends, and feel an overwhelming amount of love through the warm and fuzzies. For lack of better words, Croya brought me back my brother, as well as so many new amazing friends, and I'm forever grateful. If that doesn't sum up Croya in a few sentences, I don't know what ever could. Croya is something I'll never be able to experience in my life again. Not in college, not out of college, not even if I found my own set of 90 kids and brought them to a camp identical to Camp Henry Horner and forced them to cross the line and give autos at some point in my life. The light and love in the community are unmatchable, and it has meant truly everything to me. Thank you for everything.
Great job, Ava. Thank you for sharing your essay with City Council and all of Lake Forest. We really appreciate your dedication to Croya over your high school years.
Thank you so much, and thank you for having us on this call tonight.
Absolutely. All right, we can go to slide 3. Croya is awaiting the opportunity to reopen to the youth of Lake Forest and Lake Bluff. We have held many youth programs and meetings virtually, but we are excited for the time we can once again assemble in person. Croya's values hold truer now than ever as we face current challenges to justice and equality in our country. Croya will always support acceptance, respect, empathy, and accountability for all. We hope you will save the date of August 29th for a wonderful Croya celebration. Thank you for 40 years of support. If anyone has any questions, I'd be glad to field them.
Any questions for Todd?
This is Jennifer. Just a comment, Todd, because I've been on the front lines with you for the last maybe 2 years now, and I obviously think you and the staff of Croya are extraordinary, do a spectacular job, organizing the program and the services and being the outreach that you are to our community. It does take a village when you're raising, family, young children and teens, especially with all of the the distractions that they have and the challenges that they're subjected to today. I really can't imagine Lake Forest without Croya. I've heard from many of the middle schoolers and high schoolers who come to Croya and participate in retreats and other programming. And it's just such a vitally important resource for Lake Forest and Lake Bluff. And so thank you, Todd, for everything that you and your staff do.
Thank you, Jennifer. And it's an honor to be able to be here tonight and carry on this tradition. And it's awesome to see that you're a new alderman and will be a wonderful voice for the youth in Lake Forest. So thank you.
Are there questions or comments for Todd?
Very well.
I'd just like,
Oh, go ahead, please, Mayor.
I would just like to quickly say that this is actually one of my favorite things that we do at the city council. I've been listening to these essays every year for the past, well, I skipped one, but you know, every year for the past 10 years or so. And they're always so uplifting, and I'm always incredibly impressed with the poise and the skill with which these young people present their point of view, and how articulate they are and how poised they are under stress. Normally this is done live in front of the city council, which is, I think, probably even more stressful than doing it virtually, but wonderful essays, wonderful snapshot of the talent that's coming out of our high school, and what Croya is doing with the young people in our community to improve their lives and improve the life of the whole community. So thank you from just from me.
You're very welcome, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for your thoughts.
Well, and congratulations to and Ava and all of the graduating seniors. And Todd, I know we look forward to the celebration in August. Note for the council that there are rumors that our very own Mike Thomas might be hopping behind the drum kit to bang out a few Springsteen covers. So we hope the event happens. More to come. No pressure, Mike. I assume you're in the audience. And with that, just one final note I have for the city council, as I had mentioned just prior to the meeting commencing, the July 6th city council meeting is being canceled. So for both aldermen and the public, please make note of that. I hope everyone has a wonderful 4th of July holiday, and we'll see everyone back on the 20th. That concludes my report, Mayor.
Thank you, Jason. The next item is opportunity for citizens to address the city council. Members of the public can provide public comment by calling into the number 847-810-3643, and we'll wait a minute or two to see if there are any callers.
Good evening, everyone. There are no calls.
Okay, thank you, Amber. The next item on the agenda is committee reports, and the Finance Committee, Elizabeth Holub will introduce the first reading for consideration of the annual appropriation ordinance for fiscal year 2021 and the approval of rollovers. Again, first reading. Elizabeth?
Thank you, Mayor. As the Mayor indicated, this evening is just first reading of the FY21 appropriations ordinance. Although the City Council approves an annual budget and a comprehensive fiscal plan each year, the appropriations ordinance is the formal legal mechanism required in order to appropriate and expend public funds. State statutes require that approval of the appropriation ordinance be done by the end of the first quarter, so for the city by the end of July. And that has to be filed with the county clerk within 30 days of approval. So we typically present first reading to you at your second meeting in June, and then we bring back for final approval and a public hearing at your July 20th meeting this year. The appropriations ordinance in format is a little different than the budget. The write-up and a worksheet's provided in your packet to kind of show you the map from the budget document you approved in May. to the appropriations ordinance that's before you this evening. We start out with the budget that is approved in May, and we deduct from that debt payments that are actually authorized with each bond issue when you adopt the bond ordinance. So it does not need to be appropriated each year. We add to that for each fund rollovers. Rollovers are items that were included in your fiscal year 20 budget that were either not started or not completed in fiscal year 20. So the requesting department is asking for those funds to be carried over to fiscal year 21 so that the project can be completed or done. You receive in your packet, both this meeting and next, a detailed list of the rollovers so that you can see an itemized listing of the requests made. I would just caution that this is a very early time for a rollover listing. We are required to charge all goods and services received as of April 30th to the prior fiscal year. So we are going through the process and still paying invoices that are actually charged back to fiscal year 20. So we work with departments to have all of those invoices turned in and completed so that by the second meeting in July, we can present you a more accurate and final list of rollover requests. We also add to those amounts a 10% contingency. This is an item that the City of Lake Forest has used successfully for a number of years as part of the appropriation ordinance. It provides for those unanticipated expenses to be managed throughout the year and approved by the City Council within the appropriation ordinance, although we administer to the budget. So you will see items that come up throughout the year that are unbudgeted, and we simply include the information that will come from the contingency, and a supplemental appropriation will be provided to you at the end of the year. Those supplemental appropriations are rarely needed because they can be handled within the 10% contingency. So once all those calculations are made, again, you see the totals calculated on the appropriation ordinance worksheet. Those totals are then pulled over into the formal appropriation ordinance before you. So I am happy to answer any questions about the process or any questions you have about first reading. Otherwise, we would just recommend granting first reading of the appropriation ordinance this evening.
Any questions for Elizabeth? Okay. There being none, I would entertain a motion to approve first reading of the fiscal year 2021 appropriation ordinance and the rollovers.
So moved. Seconded.
Okay, roll call vote, please.
Alderman Morris,
Aye.
Alderman Karas,
Aye.
Alderman Rummel,
Aye.
Alderman Notes. Can you unmute yourself, Ted?
Aye.
Thank you. Alderman Preschlack,
Aye.
Alderman Gashgarian,
Aye.
Alderman Bushman,
Aye.
Alderman Weber. 8 yeas, 0 nay, motion carries.
Thank you. And then just to repeat something that Elizabeth mentioned, a public hearing will be conducted on July 20th, 2020 in conjunction with the second reading of the ordinance. That completes our committee reports. Next item on the agenda is items for omnibus vote consideration. There are 9 tonight. I'll read them off. First is approve the extension of the mayor's declaration of a local state of emergency until the next city council meeting. Second is approval of the June 1, 2020 city council meeting minutes. Third is approval of a resolution for the student members of the executive board at Croya. Fourth is approval to enter into a 3-year professional services agreement with a 2-year renewal option with automated merchant systems to provide credit card processing services. Number 5 is approval of an ordinance amending City Code Section 38 related to purchasing. Be waiving first reading and granting final approval on that. Number 6 is approve the purchase of dual band capable portable radios for the fire department from state bid vendor Motorola Solutions. Number 7 is award of proposal to Thielen Materials LLC for a 3-year compost center transferring agreement for the sum of $109,000 per year. Number 8 is authorization for the city manager to enter into a professional services agreement with Strand Associates and Donahue and Associates, Inc. for professional water plant engineering services. Number 9 is award of proposal to McMahon Associates for the water distribution study and water main replacement prioritization plan in the amount of $36,400. Are there any items here that any alderman would like to see removed or taken separately? Okay, there being none, I would entertain a motion to approve the 9 omnibus items as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, another roll call vote, please.
Alderman Morris.
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you.
Can't
Alderman
get to that little button.
Alderman Karas.
Aye.
Alderman Rommel.
Aye.
Alderman Notes is frozen. Alderman Preschlack.
Aye.
Alderman Gushgarian.
Aye.
Alderman Bushman.
Aye.
Alderman Weber.
Aye.
8 yea, 0 nay. Motion carries.
Thank you, everyone. The next item on our agenda is new business. There is one item of new business. It's approval of and restated intergovernmental services agreement between the City of Lake Forest and the Village of Lake Bluff, presented by Jason Wisha, City Manager.
Thank you very much, Mayor. Amber, if you want to go ahead and pull up the presentation. You can advance to the next slide. So again, thank you very much this evening. I'm pleased to present the amended intergovernmental agreement between the City of Lake Forest and the Village of Lake Bluff. I think, as most people know, our two communities have had a long history of collaboration and successful partnership. Really, the nature of the relationship as pertains to the intergovernmental agreement in question is such where the City of Lake Forest has long provided exceptional services to the Village Bluff and to its residents in a few select areas that I'll elaborate on in a minute. And in turn, the relationship has provided cost-sharing advantages for Lake Forest residents as we share in the cost of service provision. The most recent version of the current intergovernmental agreement was last approved between the two communities in 2011. As you can note from the slide, contained within that IGA are numerous services that Lake Forest has historically provided to Lake Bluff, most notably emergency medical services, ambulance services to the community of Lake Bluff, fire dispatching services. This is an item that was contained in the 2011 IGA, but has since become obsolete. We as a city used to staff in-house emergency dispatching services, but in 2014, we transitioned to the regional Glenview dispatching network. Another area contained within the IGA that has become somewhat obsolete is public access television. We used to handle Lake Forest TV services in-house. Over the last few years, that was transitioned out. We now contract out privately for that operation and service, as does Lake Bluff, independently from us. I would note, though, that the fiber feed that Lake Bluff utilizes still runs through our city hall. There's no cost for us to maintain that at this point. Were we to incur costs in the future, we will probably look at reevaluating the need, and that would be a future city council conversation. A lot of communities have moved away from the local TV channels and have been broadcasting meetings for free, YouTube or other online provider offerings. So again, that's something that is working fine at no significant expense for us from an infrastructure perspective now, but maybe something we reevaluate in the future. Another area of cooperation between our two communities is senior and youth services. Lake Bluff residents enjoy access to Croya, which we heard a lot about tonight, for the youth in the community, as well as Dickinson Hall programming and services for senior citizens in the community. And then last, but certainly not least, in our community development department, we have provided inspectional and plan review services to the village of Lake Bluff, consistent with the terms in the 2011 agreement. You can move to the next slide. Thank you. So while the agreement has served both communities very well, it is nearly 10 years old, and some of the sections needed to be updated to more accurately reflect current realities. I acknowledged some of those on the prior slide, but I will say that working with my counterpart in Lake Bluff, we were able to negotiate several changes, which I'll just quickly summarize as follows. Again, we eliminated the obsolete dispatch services language because it was no longer it's no longer a service we provide. We also modified the public access TV services, again, to reflect our respective changes to outsource that service. And then last, we modified the EMS billing section, both to address past billing discrepancy issues and to amend future billing methodologies to ensure that Lake Forest was receiving appropriate cost recovery for EMS calls that were resulting in transports to hospitals, but also to ensure that Lake Bluff was being fairly billed for non-transport EMS calls, which required fewer city resources to provide. So again, I'm pleased to report that we negotiated a framework that was fair to all parties and ensures the strong relationship between our two communities will continue well into the future. I thank my counterpart, Administrator Drew Irvin in Lake Bluff, and also want to take the opportunity to acknowledge those who assisted in the negotiation on the city's end, our Finance Director, Elizabeth Holub, Fire Chief Pete Siebert, and City Attorney Julie Tappendorf. As noted on the slide, the renegotiated agreement would serve for an initial term of 5 years, and that would be retroactive to the start of the current fiscal year, which began on May 1st. And as you can see, it was approved by the Lake Bluff Village Board last week. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions. Otherwise, City Council approval is respectfully requested.
Questions for Jason? Okay, well, there being none, I would entertain a motion to approve the proposed amended and restated intergovernmental service agreement between the City of Lake Forest and the Village of Lake Bluff.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, roll call vote, please.
Alderman Morris.
On the mute button, yes, aye.
Very good. Alderman Karas.
Aye.
Alderman Rummel.
Aye.
Alderman Notes. Can't hear you, Ted. Alderman Notes.
I think he's frozen.
Aye.
There we go. Thank you. Alderman Preschlack.
Aye.
Alderman Gushkarian.
Aye.
Alderman Bushman.
Aye.
And Alderman Weber.
Aye.
8 yeas, 0 nay. Motion carries.
Thank you. It's Jason sort of, I don't know that he gave himself enough credit for pushing this thing over the finish line, but it's been a while to get this all sorted out, and it's a legacy issue that has been out there that he inherited, and getting these things sorted out is a big step forward. So congratulations for getting this done. It's a good thing for Lake Bluff. It's a good thing for Lake Forest, and it needed to be done. So thanks for all, Julie, Elizabeth, Pete Siebert, lots of inputs to this modified agreement. So thanks to all who got this done. The last thing on our agenda tonight is additional items for discussion or comment by council members. Are there any members of the council who would like to make any comments about anything?
Mayor, I have just one quick comment. Alderman Karas and I had the pleasure of dropping off a celebratory cake at the fire department last week. And if you haven't seen our beautiful shiny new red engine, it's a pretty fancy piece of equipment on our fleet. So really well done.
Yeah, I had a chance to, thank you. I had a chance to go over and take a look at, and they had the old and the new parked next to each other. Yeah. And it's really interesting to see the old one, which is, I think, about 20 years old. All the controls are mechanical. Mm-hmm. The valves are all adjusted by hand. The gauges are all dials with needles. The new one is basically a flat screen, touch screen. That's it. It's really impressive, and they've put a tremendous amount of time and energy into designing that vehicle to be exactly what they needed, and it's really very clever. It's worth taking a little trip over there some afternoon on a nice day. They're very proud of it, and they should be. It's a big step forward for them. So thank you for bringing that up. I should have done that myself.
And I
other comment, and thank you. And by the way, thank you and Jennifer for figuring out, how and where to get the fire engine cake. I'm sure it was. I know it was very much appreciated.
That was all Jennifer, and it was beautiful.
Well, and it came from you, Mayor, and all of the entire City Council.
Well, thanks for taking the initiative on that.
Our pleasure.
And I would just note, these don't happen all that often, because the engines we put into service tend to last 20 years or more. But it has been a tradition of the fire department to bring over the new engines to City Hall the night of a council meeting to allow all of the aldermen the opportunity to see it and observe all the bells and whistles that go into these really sophisticated pieces of equipment. So I know that obviously did not happen tonight because we're meeting virtually, but I am confident that the fire chief will be eager to show it off whenever we're back meeting at City Hall again sometime in the near future.
Maybe a video, since I'm fond of doing videos and I haven't done one for a couple of days. Anybody else? Any other comments? All right. Well, I guess I'm going to have one last comment because it's sort of, it hasn't come up tonight and it probably should have, but I really want to thank our public safety team and Jason and Kathy Cerniak and the entire collective, our public works department, for executing on 48 hours notice a very successful and very smooth public demonstration in favor of the Black Lives Matter movement a week or so ago. It was obviously very controversial in the community in advance, and then when it was over and everything had gone so well, it was no longer controversial. And that's a credit to the organizers for being flexible. It's a credit to our staff for making sure that everything went smoothly, that security was carefully thought out and well executed. And it kind of proves that we can do these things in Lake Forest, even though it hasn't happened since 1967 on this scale. There was a small demonstration in opposition to the Kelmscott Park apartment development a few years ago, which I think the financial benefits to the city that we now know of today are, proves the worth of that project. And but this is something that doesn't happen very often in Lake Forest, and it was executed on very short notice flawlessly. So thank you to the staff. Thanks to all the aldermen. I know a majority of the city council was in attendance, and I saw a lot of familiar Lake Forest neighbors and residents there as well. So it was well done, Jason. Well done to Carl Waldorf. Well done to Kathy Cerniak, Mike Thomas, Pete Siebert, everybody who had a hand in making sure that event was as successful as it was, despite some of the trepidations we had going in. So,
Mr. Mayor, if I could make a comment.
Yes, sir.
I wasn't going to make it except for the fact that you brought it up. Many of you know I'm fond of sayings and hopefully trying to convey a thought, but just in general, one of my favorite sayings is from Dr. Martin Luther King. And Dr. King did say, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. And I think that's something that we should all ponder. But I do want to say how proud I am too of our law enforcement community. And I think they exemplify what's good and great and honorable in law enforcement. Thanking Chief Waldorf, Deputy Chief Copeland, all the way down to our newest sworn officers. I think they really represent what's good and the best that we have. I know that citizens, everybody was on edge, and I want to encourage some of our members of the public to look into the Citizens Police Academy when it does reopen. It's a tremendous way for people to understand what our law enforcement is all about, and the fine women and men that we have here in the city protecting and serving. And I can't say enough how proud I am of our law enforcement community, and indeed the rest of our city government and staff. But I just wanted to make that plug.
Thank you, Alderman. Other comments before we adjourn? Okay, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the meeting is adjourned.
Good night, everybody.
Have a great time out there, George.